Hi everyone, this is Andrew. This will be my fourth JavaScript tutorial, and today we'll be making an ability score generator for the game Pathfinder. A few days ago I played Pathfinder. It's basically a medieval fantasy tabletop role-playing game. So you use pen and paper and you roll dice. And you make characters such as wizards and knights and so on. So every character requires ability scores. So this is just at the Pathfinder website. So the first step in making a character is to determine ability scores. And by this definition, starting by generating your character's ability scores. These 6 scores determine your character's most basic attributes and are used to decide a wide variety of details and statistics. Anyway, under here, generating ability scores, there's a few different methods of generating them. For example, there's the standard method, which is roll 4d6, so roll 4 dice and discard the lowest die result. And then you keep the top 3. Then there's the classic method, which is roll 3d6 straightly. And then there's the heroic method, roll 2d6 and add 6 to the sum of the dice. There's a few other methods. Dice pool, where you distribute a number of dice. Purchase, where you distribute, you spend some points to buy. Today we're just going to focus on the first 3. Standard, classic and heroic. So go ahead and make a HTML file. Name it what you will. And edit it with your favorite text editor. You'll need a doc type tag at the start, HTML tags enclosing everything, a head tag and body section. Within the head, you'll want meta with charset equal to UTF-8. Put the title in there. Just go ahead and create style tags and script tags. So style we use for CSS, which is kind of ways to format our tables and things to make it look a bit nicer. Because we'll be using a table in this one, so the default table isn't very nice, I find. Right, so what do we need to do first? Well, first of all, we want to let the user select between these 3 methods, so standard, classic and heroic. So there's 3 different sort of ways to roll the dice to create your ability scores. So let's make a constant. So we can just go const, and we'll call it dice, for lack of a better word. And that'll equal what? Well, we're going to create an enum, effectively an enum, where we have different types. So they can be standard, and we'll have a description of standard there. What's the other one? Classic and heroic. Classic and heroic. We could just paste in some of this, I think. So standard is roll 3d6. Yeah, I'll just copy and paste this, save me having to come up with something. Classic is roll 3d6 and add the dice together. And heroic is roll 2d6 and add 6 to the sum of the dice. So mathematically speaking, these all result in the same range, don't they? They all result in a range from 3 to 18. It's just that the different methods have, I guess, greater, more chance of getting a higher number. So looking at this would be the worst. This classic method would be the worst method because it's just relying on chance alone. Whereas this 2d6 plus 6, it means you're automatically setting the 3rd die to equal 6. And this 4d6 method, well, on average, going to get higher than 3d6. Right, we've got that. Now, what do we want to? How are we going to let the user select the method? Well, we could just use a radio button, couldn't we? So go down to your body section, and we'll put in a form. A form. Now, a form has an action, doesn't it? If you remember from previous tutorials. Now, because we're using JavaScript, just go ahead and prefix that with JavaScript, and we'll run a method. What does this do? When we hit the submit button of this form, what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to randomly roll the dice, don't we? So how about we just preempt ourselves and create a method called roll, as in roll dice. Good, close the form. I'm thinking that this is possibly going to be the start of an entire character generator, so maybe we should have sections. So within forms you can set field, it's called field set. Field set, that's the one. And it just basically makes a section in a kind of a styled in a nice way. And you can give that a legend. We can try running this actually. Okay, so at the moment you can see there's just a border there. Let's give it a title. Now, within fields, the title is under the name legend, I believe. Legend, we'll call it ability scores. Legend. Okay, looking good so far. Now we want, within this we want some radio buttons, don't we? So that's a type of input. Input type equals radio. Now to link radio buttons together, you know the radio buttons where you've got, say, 3 options, and if you select one, the other ones are deselected automatically. In order to link them, I think we have to use the name property. So we'll just call this, just dice is fine. Name dice input. And then we can give this one a name. Well, there's going to be 3 options. There's going to be the standard method. Just go ahead and duplicate that. The classic and the heroic method. What does that look like? Okay. Yep, so we can see that the radio function is working. If we click on any of them, it'll deselect the others. Good. What if, for example, this name was different? Just say we called this cat. So that means that it should detach the heroic from the rest of them, shouldn't it? Yeah, and it does. So if I'm selecting standard or classic, heroic remains selected. So I'll just undo that. Great. Now, when they select these, it'd be nice to, because standard, classic, and heroic don't have much meaning, do they? It'd be nice to see what that actually means in terms of, you know, dice, number of dice and so on. So let's use our description here. So under our enum, we'll use that description when they select these. So what could we call here? We say, how about we say on click. So when they click a radio button, something happens. We'll say it's going to be JavaScript too. We'll call a method. We'll say set dice. That'll do. So let's create a function called set dice. And what does it do? Well, how about we create a variable? I'm not sure if we'll need this or not, but let's go ahead, create a variable called dice. And we'll say that set dice sets that variable. We'll have to pass something here, won't we? Let's pass a variable called dice. So here we'll want to, yeah, well, we can use the enum. So to use an enum, you just put the name of it followed by dot followed by the name of the, yep. So we'll do that for each of these. It's just a way to differentiate which one they've selected. So this will be for classic, and this will be for heroic. So by clicking on each of these individual radio buttons, it'll pass a particular argument to this method, which is called dice. So we want to set the global variable, so we'll just prefix that with this. So this makes it reference this variable here as opposed to this one here. So the global variable dice will equal the past variable, the past argument, dice. Good. And what else do we want to do? So that'll set the dice. Well, we also want it to populate something, don't we? We want it to populate, say, a description paragraph or something. So let's go ahead and create a paragraph here. We can just give it an ID because we're not going to actually put anything in it at this stage anyway. So ID will equal just dice description. That'll do. Close that one. So we've got an ID. So how do we reference HTML within JavaScript? Well, we can just use the ID, can't we? So we can go document get element by ID. Now we have to put in exactly what we've put here. So you can copy and paste that. Get element by dice description. Now we want to set its inner HTML. So that means we'll be setting what goes inside the paragraph. Inner HTML will equal, well, it'll just equal dice, won't it? It'll equal this. Let's try it. That seems to be working. The only thing I notice is when we reset it, it doesn't sort of show it until you click on something. That's because we're only calling it from within. We're calling it from within the set dice method, from the onClick here. So we need to set up some sort of onload, don't we, when the page loads. So how about we make a function called load page, function load page, and it can just set dice. When we load the page, what do we want? Well, we could just set it to the standard, couldn't we? We could set dice. Oops. We can basically do this here. Set dice standard. We'll just say when they reload the page, it'll automatically run the set dice standard. And to run load page, we can just do it from this body tag, and we can say on load equals. Do we need to put JavaScript here? I can't remember. Load page. See if that works. So if I hit refresh here or reload, yeah, except one thing. It's not selecting. It's not selecting. So how do we go ahead and select the radio button? Well, we probably need to give this an ID. So this first radio with the standard one, we need to give that an ID. Do that here. ID will equal something. Dice. Oh, we'll call it radio, so it's clear. Radio standard. That'll do. So when the page loads, we want it to set the dice. Great. What does set dice do? It sets the dice and gets the dice description and sets it to dice. And we want to set that radio button. So we'll have to get that radio button. So we'll do this document get element by ID. And we want it to be equal to this radio standard. So it's just a way to set a default. And we want to set its checked, I believe it is. Checked equals true. That means it'll select that radio button. Let's try. Didn't seem to work, did it? No, it's not selecting anything. What's going on here? Load page? Maybe I don't... Ah, of course. I haven't closed those quotes there. That seems to be working. Yeah, so every time I hit reload, no matter what I've selected, it goes back to standard. That sounds good. Just need to make sure I if I really do need this or not. So I'll just comment that out. I select classic, for example, reload. Yes, we do need that, because can you see that although this is working here, if I select heroic and I hit reload, this is being updated. The variable thinks that it's in standard mode, but the radio button is still heroic. So we do need that. That should work. Yeah, classic, heroic, reload. Just to make this stand out a bit, or not blend in too much, we might just set that to italics. We can do that by we'll put a paragraph there, and instead we'll put an EM inside there. So that EM, remember, refers to emphasis or italics. There we go. So we'll say, we'll put an emphasized piece of text within the paragraph, and that should fix that up. There we go. So yeah, classic, heroic, great. So classic, roll 3d6 and add the dice together. Okay. So for the user, they clearly know when they select these, they know what's happening now. Next step, we want to output something, don't we? So let's make a table, because a table I think would suit this well. A table. And what goes in this table? Well, all tables need table row. And the first row will be the headers, won't it? So TH is for headers, table header. What's the first? Let's have a look at this. So, ability scores. You probably want the name of the ability score. So there's the actual score, there's the modifier. All this we'll ignore, this bonus spells or whatever, we'll ignore all that. We just want the modifier at this stage, and the score itself, and the actual ability. So there's 6 of them. There's strength. I see those abbreviate them, STR, DEX, and so on. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Okay. So we'll have the ability. We'll have the score, so the actual ranking of it, and we'll have its modifier in accordance with this. So the score and the modifier. Great. What else might we need? I'm thinking, because dice are going to be rolled here, we should probably have a 4th column that shows the actual dice. Because I know, at least for me, it's hard to trust. If you just see if it's just a black box where you just hit roll and out pops a number, it's hard to know that it's doing the correct thing. So just to keep everybody honest, we'll put a 4th column called roll, or just the dice. The dice is okay. Good. That's the first row. Now what's the second row? We'll just check that actually before we get too carried away. Okay. Next we want the abilities. These aren't going to be headers, are they? They're going to be data. So TD for table data. So there's strength. Now, so these go in order. So the first one here will represent the ability. The next is the score. So the score we don't know, do we? So we can probably just set an ID for that. We'll populate that from JavaScript. So ID will equal, let's use the first 3 letters as they do on the website there. Strength, strength score or something like that. Yeah. And this will be the modifier, so strength mod. And the dice, strength dice. Good, so we've got an ID for each of them. Just make sure that looks okay before I go ahead. Okie dokie. It's all emphasized, so I need to close that. EM. I don't want it emphasized. Why is that? I'll just try that. See if that makes a difference. Yeah, it did. So yeah, with EM tags it looks like you have to open them and close them, not in the one sort of thing. So when we go ahead, when we populate this dice description, it obviously sticks some text in there in the middle as if we were doing something there. Great. Okie dokie. We'll copy and paste this row because we want to do this for each of the abilities. 3, 4, 5, 6. So the last one I remember is Charisma. CHA. Let's just revisit what they're called. Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence. Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, wasn't it? Intelligence. I'll copy and paste it, I think. Intelligence. And Wisdom was the other one, wasn't it? Wisdom. Good. We'll just go ahead and update all those IDs. Remembering that HTML IDs must be different. If you've got two of them, so if you've got two IDs that are the same on any page, well, it'll either get confused or break. So it's not worth doing. Just make sure everything's got its unique ID. Int Constitution, Dexterity, DX, good. Let's take a look at that. Okay, it's looking okay, but as you see, the default table formatting is not very nice, is it? Let's go ahead and do some CSS to fix that up. We'll make it look a bit prettier. So remember I mentioned earlier that in the style tag we can do some CSS. So first of all, what's wrong with our output? Probably we'd like some lines around everything, wouldn't we? So how about we put some lines around the table headers and the table cells, the table TD. So we can go TD and TH. TD and TH, I think that's how it works. TD, TH, and we put in, what do we want to change? Line, so that'll be the border. The border, I think we can just go one pixel, solid, black. I think that's how it works. We can easily modify it. Yep, that worked. What else doesn't look very good? Probably we can center everything. See that the text here is all to the left. It'll look a bit funny when all the numbers are to the left too. So we'll center all that. Just as in this table, see they've got it, everything reasonably centered. Not really actually. We'll center it anyway. So that will be for the, let's have a look at that again. It looks like the header is automatically centered, so we just need to do it for table data. I think it's text align. We can do it for both of them, it doesn't matter. Text align will be center, spelt that way. Great, looking okay. I'm thinking the dice, it's not really part of the main, the main thing is score and modifier. So dice, we don't want it with borders. So let's create a class called borderless. So a class is represented by a dot followed by the title of it, and all we want to say is that border none. So anything that's got the borderless class or belongs to the borderless class will have no border. And what do we not want to have the border? We don't want this dice. So we can say class equals border. Go ahead and copy that. So we don't want this row. Borderless is what I was meaning. Class equals borderless, class equals borderless. Charisma. Just say we forgot to put charisma. What does that look like? Okay, good. Yeah, so the dice will just be something on the side that we whack in there. Let's zoom up a bit here, seeing we've got lots of space. Okie dokie. Oops. Dexterity, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Next, we've got the table. Now what do we want to do? We want to generate some. Well, what does the user have to do? First they have to select this, don't they? So they have to select this, and then they have to hit some button. So because it's a form, we can go ahead and use the submit button. Go to table here. We'll description after the table, we'll put an input. Input type equals submit. Remembering submit just runs the action of the form, which in our case is going to be a roll function. Type equals a submit, and well, let's see what that looks like first. Yeah, submit query looks ridiculous. So we're going to put, let's put a break in there, and we'll put a value equal to roll. Great, looks good. So when they hit that, they select their method, they hit roll, and hopefully something happens. We need to give that some functionality, don't we? So we know that it's going to call this action, which is roll, so let's go ahead and make that function. I'm just putting these in alphabetical order so it's easy for me to find them. It's probably a good habit. Function roll. Does roll require a parameter? No, not really, because we're setting the dice method here, aren't we? So when the page loads and when they click the radio buttons, the method's being assigned to this variable. So we know what type of method they're playing. Let's use a switch command that just allows us to select between a number of options. And the thing that we're switching is the dice, so the type of dice they've selected. Now switch just uses the case keyword. Now the case standard, case standard does something. Now we have to, it's important to put break in here so that if you don't put break, it'll run through and it'll run everything. So we only want it to run the standard section, and then what's going on here? So we'll have classic, not that, classic, and heroic. Now looking at these methods, this 46 discard the lowest die result sounds a bit complicated. So I think this classic method is the easiest method for us to start with. So let's just go ahead and program classic. So what do we want to do? Well, we want it to determine our strength. our dexterity and all the other ones. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. We should probably make some variables for each one of them, because we may be using these if we're going ahead and creating a character generator. Strength. We'll want to save these, we'll want to have these variables for access later. So strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Good. So for the so we're going to work on classic. So for the classic rolling, which is just roll 3d6 and add this dice together. So for each of our ability scores, we're going to do something. Let's make a method. We'll call it roll classic. So it'll roll the classic set of dice. Let's create that function. Function roll classic. Now, what does it do? According to this, roll 3d6 and add the dice together. So roll 3 dice. Well, what is it? It's the total of 3 dice. Yeah, the total of 3 dice. Now, how do we go ahead and roll the dice? Well, we have to use some sort of function, built-in function, say random, because we want a random roll, don't we? We want a random roll between 1 and 6. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 6, and it has to be an even chance of rolling each of them. So I think I'll make a function whose only duty is to roll a single die. We'll say roll die. Now it will return a value. It will return a random value. So math random. Now math random, as far as I'm aware, produces a value between 0 and 1, not including 1. So it'll always be under 1, less than 1, but it could include 0. But it will be a decimal. So that's not good for us, is it? We want an integer. So we can use the floor function, which just rounds to the lowest. It rounds down, basically. We'll put a floor function around all that. That means if we roll a 0, if we roll 0.5, it'll round down to 0. Still, that's not what we want, is it? What if we multiply that by 6? So just say we got 0.5 times 6 is 3, isn't it? And then round that down, it'll round down to 3. The only problem is if we've got 0.1, so 0.1 times 6 is 0.6, round down is 0. We don't want 0 as a result, do we? So we can go ahead and add 1 to that. So that should get us a number between 1 and 2. Between 1 and 6. So 1, 2, 6. Looks okay. Now, the number, so roll classic, the total of 3 dice. So we want to roll, I think just to play it safe, because we're going to output the individual dice rolls, aren't we? So we should go ahead and make a variable for each of the dice that are rolled. So we'll just call it D1, D2, D3. And this one here is roll 4d6. So we actually need 4 dice here. So we'll put D4 there too. D1, D2, D3, D4. So for classic, we're going to have 1 die equals roll die. So that'll return a random number between 1 and 6. And we'll do that for each of the 3. So remember the definition here, the total of 3 dice. D2 will equal that, D3 will equal that. And what will we return? We'll just return the sum of all them, won't we? So D1 plus D2 plus D3. Okay, so strength will equal roll classic. We can do that 6 times, can't we, for each of the abilities. Dexterity. Dexterity will equal that. Constitution will equal that. I'm glad this is remembering this now. Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So all of them just use the roll classic method to generate their scores. So after we roll the dice, what do we need to do? Well, we need to output the result. Output the result. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and make a method. We'll call it update UI. So it'll do all the UI stuff. I don't want to put that all in the roll method. So output the result, we'll make a thing called update UI. Function update UI. So what have we determined from the roll? We've determined the stats, in effect, after we fill these ones out too. At the moment we're just using classic, that's okay. So we'll determine the 6 ability scores. So what do we need to update here? Remembering in our table, in our HTML, we've got the score here, haven't we? And it's just the abbreviation of the ability score, underscore, score. If you get all that. So we have to use this sort of thing again in our HTML. Yep, we'll grab that. So this will be the update the scores. So it'll be the abbreviation FOB underscore score in our HTML will equal, well, we just want the newly rolled value, don't we? So if we do that 6 times for each of the what are they called? Ability scores. Strength, dexterity, con, int. The order is unimportant, obviously, because it's all outputted. It's already formatted in the table. We could put this in any order, it wouldn't matter. Int with CHA, isn't it? And dexterity, constitution, intelligence, I'll be a master of all these at the end of this. Wisdom, charisma. Right, update the scores. Let's see what that does. I'm sure there'll be some mistake, there usually is. So remember, standard won't do anything. Heroic shouldn't do anything. Classic, hopefully, will do something. Of course not. Get element by ID strength score. Just make sure that we're getting what we need. So we've got the ID, strength score, dex score. Yeah. Maybe I need that. Let's see if that does anything. Because that I should have closed those TDs. That could be affecting it. I'll go ahead and fix that now because I should be doing that. TDs are all closed. Yeah. TDs. I'm trying to think, what else could it be? Maybe the score's not rolling, maybe... What I should do to test that, I should just output a string. I shouldn't try to do everything at once. Okay, so up in our update the score, so get on my strength score, in a HTML equals that. How about we just put a string here, just to see what happens. Test. Okay. Classic. It's a good idea when trying to find a problem to open up a debug window or some sort of console. So we can go ahead and do that at least in Firefox, by going to Tools, Web Developer, Browser Console. There we go. I might just move that over to one side so we can... Let's run it again. So standard, reference error, standard is not defined. Okay, that means we probably need to put, yes, we do need to do that. We should prefix that with the name of the enum. So dice, remember our enum was defined here. Yeah, so standard by itself doesn't mean anything. Although in some languages you could just write that. I haven't had much experience with JavaScript, so. But yeah, prefix that with dice. Let's see if that fixes anything up. Okay, looking okay. Type error, math floor is not a function. Math error is not a function. Math floor is not a function. What line was that? 65. Okay, probably just a lowercase f. Again, differences in languages. Sometimes it's capital F, sometimes it's lowercase. Try that. Okay. I just put test in there to see if, here it is. I just put test there to help me debug. That's good that we're getting undefined, because later we're going to populate that with a different method. Let's try heroic should do the same thing. Yep. Classic should roll 3d6 for each one. Good. Yep, so every time we click that, it's rolling 3d6 for each one, we think. So to prove that is actually rolling 3 dice, we should probably put the values of the 3 dice in this far right column. So let's do that. How can we do that? So at each time we roll, we're populating this global variable for each of the dice. But every time we run this again, this is going to be overwritten, isn't it? So we need to do something after each roll. So after each roll, we want to do something. Let's create another set of variables. We'll call them strength dice. So that's the actual dice that are rolled for strength. Dex dice, con dice, int dice, whiz dice, and char dice. Okay. Now how do we get the dice? Well, at this stage, after doing roll classic for strength, for example, we know the dice values. They will be there. Just had a thought, because we'll be using different amounts of dice for the different methods, we should probably make sure that we assign all dice under these methods. So because the 4th dice isn't being used, we'll just give it a blank string. That's fine. Right. So we'll roll classic, roll all the dice, and then we'll do something. So we'll go this strength dice will equal, we should probably make another method. So let's say get dice. Get dice, that'll do. We'll call it get dice string. Create a function. Function get dice string. Now all it does is return a string based on the current dice. So we could just, how about we just go D1 plus a space plus D2 plus a space plus D3 plus a space plus D4. That'll do. Remembering, if we aren't using a dice in a particular method, I've just assigned it a blank string, so this will be perfectly fine. So get dice string. Good. And we want that after each roll. There's probably a better way to do this, but this will do for the time being. So after every roll, we'll get the dice string and assign it to its variable. So this will be the dex dice. This will be the con dice. This will be the int dice. Whiz dice. Char dice. Okay. Now we've got these dice strings, which are just each individual dice roll separated by a space. Now what do we do with them? Well, the only time we want to really output them is in this update UI thing, don't we? So let's say update the dice strings. Again, we'll be using pretty much the same sort of thing. Yep. Strength dice, I believe I would have put it as. Let's have a look. Yeah, here it is. So the fourth column is just follows this pattern, strength underscore dice, and that'll equal str dice. Go ahead and duplicate that. Dex dice, con dice, int dice, whiz dice, char dice, and we need to do the same thing here. Dex, con, int, whiz, charisma. Let's try it. Standard. Okay, it's good that something's coming up, but that's fine for the time being. We haven't implemented standard. Let's try classic. Good. It's looking good so far. Let's just make sure it's actually adding it correctly. So 2 plus 6, 8 plus 5 is 13. Yep. 1 plus 5 plus 1 is 7. 3, 3, 3 is 9. 1, 2, 4 is 7. Yep. Yep. 16, 4 plus 6 plus, yep, 10 plus 6 is 16. Yeah, looking good. So it just keeps the program honest. It shows that the dice are truly, well, they're at least seemingly random. Of course, no random function is truly random, at least not that I know of. They're all they refer to them as pseudo-random. They're just using a number of different methods to create something that seems random, or it's basically, in practice, it's random enough, especially for something like this. Looking good. 3, 1, 3. Great. Okay, now what about this modifier here? Well, it's defined by Pathfinder. Score costs, no. Ability score points, no. Here we go, the modifier. Now, because we're rolling 3 dice, the minimum result we're going to get is 3, isn't it? And 3 dice, the maximum result is going to be 18. Now let's just try to find a pattern here. Forget about the minus, just imagine it started at 0 here. So it looks like for every step of 2 that you go up, you get +1. So would it not be just this, the ability score divided by 2? Sorry. Yeah, or maybe, yeah. So it'd be this score divided by 2, round down, -5. I'll just test my theory. Where will we do this? So after we roll the die, we want to calculate the modifier, don't we? So we'll probably have to put up another variable here, which is fine. I mean, we probably need these at later, because they say that these attributes, so these ability scores, are used throughout the game, so it's probably good to keep track of everything. Let's call this strength mod. Dex mod, con mod, so these are the modifiers. Int mod, whiz mod, and charisma mod. And after we roll, we can immediately know, don't we? So we can calculate the ability modifiers. Sounds like something we should put in a function, so why don't we call it calculate mod. That'll do. Calculate mod, and it'll take a ability, won't it? It'll take a score as an input, so as a parameter. And what was so let's return. My theory was that it's the number divided by 2, round down, so it'll be a floor, math floor. The score divided by 2, the score divided by 2, minus 5. So just as a quick look at a quick sanity check. So 10 divided by 2 is 10 divided by 2 is 5, minus 5 is 0. 11 divided by 2 is 5.5, round down is 5. Minus 5 is 0. Yeah, I think that should work. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Minus 5 is plus 2. Yep, I think that might be it. So calculate mod is just a little maths equation. And we'll calculate the ability modifiers here. So strength, it'll always be based on the original score, so we can do it. It won't be specific to each of these methods, so we can go ahead and do it after the switch. So the strength mod will just equal get, calculate mod, and it takes a score, doesn't it? So it'll take strength Yep, so strength is our score. Do that 6 times. Strength, dex, con, int, whiz, char. I'll be dreaming about these, I think. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Good, and now we want to output them, don't we? So in our update UI method, we'll output them. Update the scores, update the modifiers, this same sort of thing again. Now it'll be, how did we refer to it? str_mod. Okay. str_mod, and that'll be equal to strength mod. Do that for each of them. Dex, con, int, whiz, charisma, dex, con, int, whiz, charisma. Let's see what that looks like, and we'll do some double checking, do some testing. Standard shouldn't do anything, right? Classic. Okay. So 8 is -1. That's correct. 14 is 2. 14 is, they write +2. We can fix that up. 11 is 0. 11 is 0. Yes, I remember that. 10 and 11 are 0. Let's try to get some bit of variety here. Here we go. 5 is -3. Is that right? 5 is -3. 16 is 3. 16 is 3. Yep. 12 is 1. 13 is 1. Is that right? 12 and 13 are 1. Yep, looking good. The only thing I would say is that they explicitly write a plus symbol here. because these are just digits, they're not, the JavaScript won't put it there. So how about we go ahead and in our get mod string, we can put a plus in there if it's positive. What about 0? What do they do for 0? 0 is just by itself. Below 0 is negative. Yep, good. It's easy enough to fix up. So in our get, let's roll, calculate mod. Why not we create a method that gets the string? Yes, so we'll go get, just as we've got a get dice string, we'll have a get mod string. Function get mod string. Very simple. It takes a mod, it takes a modifier, right? And return. Now if mod is, when does it, when it's greater than 0. When mod is greater than 0, if mod is greater than 0, return a plus, plus the mod, else just return the mod itself. So if it's negative or 0, that's fine, but if it's greater than 0, we want to add a plus to it. So we need to use this get mod string in our output, in our update UI. Yeah, so instead of just putting out the direct mod, we'll get the mod string. We'll do that because we want to keep that mod in memory, because maybe we'll need it later for other parts of character generation. So we'll just get the mod string, which takes it takes the modifier as a argument. Let's see if that works. Classic, roll. Yeah, there's the plus there. Let's see if 0 is working okay. There's a 0, there's a plus, there's a negative. The only thing I would say is that these aren't, because the negative is slightly smaller, it's smaller width than the plus. We can fix that by just putting monospace. Let's do that. Put it in CSS. So right at the top, we'll call TD and TH monospace. So I wonder what font, maybe? Font family, that would be it. Font family is monospace. There, yep. Classic. There we go. That's alright, I reckon, to have the table in monospace. That looks alright. Good. Just a thought. It's hard to know what's good and what's not. I was thinking we could add a total. See the modifier here? I presume if you've got more positives, that's better than if you've got lots of negatives, right? So why don't we create a total box here, where it adds up all the modifiers. So when people hit roll, they know, oh, this has got a total of +1, hasn't it? This one's got a total of +2, -2, -3. So that one's pretty crap. So let's create a total here. We can do that by adding an extra row. So go down to your table in your HTML. Let's create another row. Now, just looking at that, I'd suggest we don't want total to be just on the left. We'll put total over. It'll cross these two cells here, and then we'll have the total in the final column. So we can do a Colspan for that. All that means is in your TD here, write Colspan. It's just a HTML thing, and the number of columns that it will span. So it'll be 2. You'll see what I mean soon. Now we'll call it total modifier. Maybe modifier total. That'll do. I'm sure there's a correct term, but I don't know what it is. Modifier total. Now, we don't need the second, so we'll go ahead and delete that one. The dice, we don't need dice, do we? So we don't need anything there. But we do need a TD to put the actual total. So we'll call that mod total. We'll give that an ID. Now where can we set that? Well, we can set that, calculate the ability modifiers, we can set that here, mod total. Or actually we don't even need a variable, we can just add it on the fly when we need to. So in the update UI method function, update the modifiers, update the dice strings. Just in here, let's go total the modifiers. Total the modifiers. So we can go do all that again. Document, get my, yep. This time we want, I put it as mod total, didn't I? Just to confirm, mod total, yep. The ID is mod total. So mod total in HTML will equal, we'll have to use this get mod string because if there's a positive we still want it to output. Get mod, we want it to output with a plus sign. Now inside here we're going to do some addition. We'll just add up all the mods. So it'll be the strength mod plus the dex mod plus the con mod. Can you see why I didn't really need to create a variable for this? I can just do it here. It's just for it's just as an aid for the user so they can see how, I guess, good their ability scores are. Strength dex con int mod plus whiz mod plus char mod. Char mod. Let's see if that works. Classic. Okay, can you see that the modifier total is spanning 2 cells here? It's possibly, we'd probably put that as borderless, I suggest. Let's put that as borderless too. So if we go down to, remember we've got this class borderless? Let's go ahead and put that into this which one? This one here. The mod total will keep in a box. I think that looks okay. And we'll probably make that bold too. How would we make that bold? We can just make a solid black. We got any bold here? No, not really. We'll create a actually, let's have a look. It's its own, it's got an ID, hasn't it? Yeah. Down here, see there's an ID for the mod total. So in CSS you can give something with an ID its own CSS, so its own formatting. To do that you just need to use the hash symbol. So hash symbol mod total. So whenever there's, for the ID titled mod total, use this CSS. And we're going to, I think it's font weight, text weight maybe. Text weight, I forget. Let's try font weight. Font weight is bold. Classic. Let's run that. Yep. It's bold. Is it adding up? +2 + 2 is 4, +1 is 5, -1 is 4, -1 is +3. Looks good. I think we can just let's put a class for the row here. Class will equal bold. There we go. So everything in this row will be bold. So this ID mod total, which previously we've given font weight bold, let's just change that to a class instead, bold. So that entire row will be font weight bold. The first part will be borderless. The second part won't be. I think it looks okay. Let's reload that. Yeah, I reckon that looks good. Now it's only working for Classic, isn't it? I'll just double check that this addition is working okay. -4, that's not very good, is it? That's a whole pile of crap, except for your intelligence. +4. Yeah, this classic method rolls fairly average, doesn't it? You don't seem to get very many extremes. +7, that's pretty good. +1, +3, +3 is 7, 8, -1 is 7. Good, looking good. Let's work on this heroic method. I think it's the next easiest one to implement because it's 2d6 and add 6. So 2 dice plus 6. Well, we can just copy we've basically done all the hard work now. We just need to do the same sort of thing for heroic. Now, instead of rolling classic, let's make a method called roll heroic. Just put that into all of these ones. Remember, this get dice string will work because it doesn't really care. Doesn't really care what the type of rolling is. So roll classic. Let's make a function called, we'll just copy that. Function roll heroic. I don't know what's heroic about it, but I guess the averages are much higher. So we need to roll the first and the second. Actually, what is roll heroic again? It's 2 dice, isn't it? Heroic, roll 2 dice and add 6 to the sum of the dice. Okay. Roll heroic. So the total of 2 dice plus 6. Right? So we only need 2 dice. This one can equal a blank string. And the return result will be the first dice plus the second dice. Is it dice or die? I don't know. The first die plus the second die plus 6. Is that heroic? We'll just say on average the first dice is going to roll 2 dice at an average of 7, right? So 7 plus 6 is 13. So yes, it's significantly higher average. And I guess you've got much more chance of rolling much higher scores. So if you rolled, for example, 2 6s, that's much more common than rolling 3 6s, as in the classic method, if you know your probability and all that. Okay, heroic looks good. Will that work? Is that all we have to do? Let's try it. Yeah. Right, heroic. Yeah, so it's showing on the heroic, it's showing the 2 dice, isn't it? So 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 6 is 10. So even a really crappy roll like that, you're still getting 10, which is pretty good. So it's very hard to get negatives in this, isn't it? Wow, plus 10. Yes, it is truly heroic. You do get some negatives, but they're not terrible, are they? Plus 11, yeah. So with classic, we get lots of negatives, don't we? -8 there was back there. One thing I've noticed is that, can you see that when we flick between these two radio buttons, it's keeping that there? So it opens the room, you know, you could kind of cheat, I guess. You could say, oh look, well, you roll on heroic, get +8, and you go back to classic and go to everybody, look what I just rolled, wow, I'm so good. Actually, that's not. So we should reset, shouldn't we? We should reset everything when we click on these. Let's try to fix that up now. Probably just a reset method. Function, reset. Now what does it do? Well, it updates the UI, doesn't it? So in effect, we want it to update the UI with some new clearing everything, basically. So all these variables here, we want to set to nothing. So that yeah, we'll just do that. So strength equals that. Is there an easy way to do this? Let's copy that. Yeah, that should be okay. Just replacing all the commas. So the strength dice, yeah, there's going to be nothing in them too. You can do all this on one line, it doesn't really matter. Oh, what did I do there? Started deleting stuff, didn't I? Strength mod. Yeah. Strength mod anyway. That. Oh yeah, I remember what I'm doing now. That. The modifiers are all being reset. And last one, yeah, and after all those have been reset, we just want to update the UI. Let's see if that works. So oh, we're not calling that method, are we? I've made a method, but I'm not calling it anywhere. Where will that be called? When we click the radio buttons. So on click, this is happening, so they're calling the set dice method. So within that set dice method, so whenever we set dice again, we want to, this dice equals dice, I can get on my dice description, we want to reset. Done. Let's give it a go. So, oh, we roll that, if we click here, oh yeah, that resets. If we roll that, great. So we can roll some really good, oh, those are plus 13, plus 11 to say, and then we click on classic, it clears. Roll that, plus 4, that seems so good. Seems okay for the classic method. Plus 5, so we get minus 2, click on heroic, it resets. Yep, so the heroic method rolls 2 dice, the classic method rolls 3 dice, and the standard method, well, that's pretty easy to implement now, isn't it? We just have to copy exactly what we've done here and just make a new method. So roll standard, roll standard, roll standard. Just need to revisit what standard is again. Roll 4d6, discard the lowest die result and add the 3 remaining results together. Okay? So classic, heroic, standard. Standard seems better than classic. Okay, so this is the total of, well, in reality it's the total of 4 dice minus the lowest die. So it's the total of the 4 dice minus the lowest die, isn't it? So you still only have the total of 3 dice. So we'll need to roll die for each of the die. Roll die. And return, well, we want to return all the values minus the lowest die. Now how do we get the lowest die out of those 4? There's a function called mathmin, almost in every language. Somebody's gone ahead and, you could write your own method of course to write this, but just use what there's no use reinventing the wheel, as they say. And usually you can just put in values here separated by commas. So let's try that. D1, D2, D3, D4. Now this min function presumably is pretty intelligent, so if there's 2 values that are the same and they're both the lowest, it'll just take one of those away. It'll take only one, the lowest of all of them, regardless of whether they're equal or not. Let's try. Because we're outputting our dice in the 4th column, it should be very clear. Let's make sure classic's working, make sure we haven't broken anything. So that's, yep, 5 plus 4 is 9, yep. Heroic, 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 6 is 11, yep, and so on. That's looking fine. Standard. So roll 4d6, discard the lowest die result, and add the 3 remaining results together. So there's 4 dice. So based on just this description here, I would say that's 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 6 is 16. Yep. This one would be 5 plus 6, 11, 13. Yep. So the lowest one here is 1, so we just add these 3. 5 plus 4 is 13. 5 plus 5 plus 6 is... This gets significantly higher results, doesn't it? Look at this, plus 13. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 5. Yeah, that seems to be working. Oh, minus 1. I spoke too soon. So you can get low results with that too. It's still random. So heroic is obviously the less random of the three. Minus 1. I'll be very disappointed with that. Make sure it's working. 6 plus 4 plus 2. Yep. This one's 0. 2 plus 4 plus 1 is 7. Yep. There's an 18, so that's the maximum you could get there. 6 plus 6 plus 6, yep, that's looking good. I think we've finished our ability score generator for Pathfinder. Let me know how you go. Okay, thank you.